So, my last video, I talked about Trump getting impeached for the second time in his first term, and I talked a little bit about the assault on the Capitol. I didn't really go into much detail about it. I kind of just updated you, but there is a little bit more information available now as Congress is investigating the riot. Now, this is from an article from the New York Times, so I strongly suggest you go to the New York Times. That's a very good news source. So, Congress struggled on Wednesday to make sense of, the first incursion into the U.S. Capitol since 1812, so in over 200 years, and they've taken several more people into custody, including 2 police officers. I'll read that again. 2 police officers from Virginia and a firefighter from Florida. So they're charging 2 police officers and a firefighter with inciting violence against the United States, which is essentially treason. 2 police officers who are supposed to be on the front lines, right? These guys are supposed to be guarding us from crime and bringing justice throughout the community. And in reality, you have some officers who are actually assaulting the U.S. government. So, I don't see how these people became police officers in the first place. We'll touch on that a little bit more later on. Now, Washington is still in a defensive stance. Much of the city is protected by armed troops, which are camped inside the Capitol. So, obviously, this is something that they needed to do. It's pretty important that they keep the Capitol safe in the case that this wasn't a complete anomaly, in the case that this was actually part of a larger movement. Now, in a letter to the acting House and Senate Sergeants-at-Arms and the U.S. Capitol Police, the lawmakers who, again, a lot of them served in the military, which in the military they are trained to, quote, recognize suspicious activity, unquote. Obviously, this is an important thing for military personnel to learn because, obviously, in today's modern era of war, most wars are being fought in the Middle East. Most of these Middle Eastern conflicts are fought against what's essentially insurgent militias, and there are no uniforms. It's not like World War I, where if you were wearing green, you're on the Allies. If you were wearing gray, you were on the Axis. You just need to be able to recognize when someone's acting suspicious in order to properly handle the situation and properly analyze where you are. Now, they said what they described to be a, quote, extremely high number of outside groups, end quote, let into the Capitol on January 5th. Now, this might not seem like a big deal. It could have just been that, because of the protests, people just decided, hey, yeah, let's take a tour of the Capitol. We're here anyway. When in reality, this isn't actually true. Obviously, the coronavirus pandemic is still a huge deal right now. So because of this, the Capitol tours were restricted by quite a bit. So there should not have been that many people into the Capitol building, essentially. Now, the Inspector General's Office of the Capitol Police said it was opening a potentially wide-ranging inquiry into security breaches connected to the siege. So, obviously, they are investigating it, which is a good thing. The Government Accountability Office, which is a nonpartisan federal agency, said it would look into what role, if any, members of Congress may have played in this. So, not only are they looking at now police officers, firefighters, but now they're also looking at members of Congress in the U.S. Congress. Now, this isn't the only Congress that is being investigated into right now, and again, we'll touch on that a little bit later. But, essentially right now, what's going through my head is, this isn't just Trump. This isn't just one guy who got a bunch of racist and homophobic people fired up about nothing. This is an actual movement. There are multiple people that are involved in this. At least they're estimating that there are multiple people involved in this. Obviously, they're saying it wasn't a spur-of-the-moment thing, anymore. They're saying this was possibly actually planned. In my opinion, I would say that, it is. Again, I'll get into my reasons in a second here. But let's just keep going on. Now, Trump was banned from Twitter, but he did make a brief statement on Wednesday calling on Americans to, quote, to ease tensions and calm tempers, end quote. But officials in the Pentagon are profoundly worried about Inauguration Day, which is when Joe Biden is set to be sworn in, obviously. However, more than that, also the director of the FBI, Christopher Wray, and Kenneth T. Cuccinelli II, I might have butchered that, a senior officer at the Homeland Security Department, briefed over 5,000 law enforcement personnel about threats across the country, and they said that they're stressed in particular violence could erupt in all 50 state capitol buildings. All 50. So, again, they have essentially made the determination that this is not a small-scale thing. This isn't just one riot. This is a potential movement. This is a potential revolution or a potential civil war happening here. I mean, if they're worried about violence in all 50 states, that's a full-scale revolution at that point. This just one incursion, one attack at the U.S. Capitol building is a riot. It's a disgrace to the country, and it's a disgrace to democracies across the world. But for all 50 states, that's a full-scale revolution, which is way more than a disgrace to every democracy across the world. It's a complete embarrassment to the form of government that we have. The fact that the whole point of a democracy is that revolutions don't happen. You know why? Because everyone's voices are heard. It's the second that these guys stop getting their way, they riot in the Capitol building, and now there's an entire movement that the FBI and Pentagon are worried about across all 50 states, because Trump lied to them about the election and said that the results were fake when they weren't. Obviously, I sound like I'm getting pretty heated here, because I am. This is very concerning to me, at the very least. I think that, many people can agree with that. Now, I told you that there were two members of a police department. Now, they were from the Rocky Mount Police Department in Virginia. They're Officer Jacob Fracker and Sergeant Thomas Robertson. They attended the riot while they were off duty. They actually took a picture under a statue of John Stark, who, for those of you who don't know, was a war general in the Revolutionary War. He posted it on social media, and the caption said, quote, "Two men willing to actually put skin in the game and stand up for their rights," end quote. I just gotta ask a question. What rights are you standing up for exactly? What rights do you not have? What hasn't this country given you? Like, what has this country done to you in the past few years that you feel the need to stand up for your rights? Like, what rights have we taken away from you? You're a white straight man. No way in hell any of your rights have been taken away. You have more rights than anyone else in the country. Obviously, again, I'm very aggravated about this. Now, the chief of that police department, Chief Acevedo, said, quote, "It is absolutely clear that he penetrated the Capitol, and we fully anticipate him being charged federally," end quote. Now, federal agents also made arrests in New York, Maryland, Texas, and Florida, and one of them being the firefighter I mentioned earlier. He was from a town near Orlando. His name is Andrew Williams. He has been charged with unlawful entry and disorderly conduct. His lawyer, Mr. Vincent Citro, said that Mr. Trump was to blame. So this is a pretty big deal, in my opinion at least, because one of the things that the Republicans were saying during the impeachment hearing was that Trump actually said to peacefully protest, which he did technically say that. However, this is the first time somebody is coming out and actually blaming Trump. Obviously, this was his lawyer coming out and saying it, so it's possible he doesn't actually believe that, but I mean, if your lawyer's saying it, it means that's the most believable thing, which means it's probably actually the reason. I mean, like, when prosecutors come out and say it wasn't the fault, or when the defense comes out and says it wasn't my client's fault, they have a mental illness, or they were under the influence, that's essentially what this lawyer is doing. He's blaming something else in order to try to get his client off. Now, again, this is the most believable thing, which is why he said that. Mr. Citro said, quote, The president and the Capitol Police encouraged despicable behavior. Mr. Williams took part in none of it, end quote. So obviously all of this stuff, all of these people I'm laying out, none of them have been charged or convicted yet. They've just been arrested and they've been charged with these crimes. One specific person who entered the Capitol really hits a nerve, as he was wearing a sweatshirt with the logo Camp Auschwitz on it. So this man's a neo-Nazi. This man is an actual neo-Nazi. He is actually anti-Semitic. These are the kind of people that invaded the Capitol. These are the kind of people that agree with Trump. And obviously not every Trump supporter is like this. Not every single one, but it's kind of a telltale sign. This man, his name is Robert K. Packer. He's 56 years old, and he was taken into custody in Newport News, Virginia. He was charged with unlawful entry and the disruption of official government business. So obviously this is what most people are going to get charged with, because that is actually what happened. As more people are charged in connections to the attack, it has become clear many of those who went to Washington that week were not only angry, but heavily armed and in some cases dangerous. One man, his name is Cleveland G. Meredith Jr., wrote in a text that he wanted to put a bullet in the, quote, noggin of Speaker Nancy Pelosi. Now, according to the papers, this man drove across the country with a Tavor X95 assault rifle, a 9mm pistol painted with the American flag, and 2,500 rounds of ammo, including 320 armor-piercing 5.56 rounds. So this man was ready for a war. This guy wasn't just ready for a riot. He was ready for a freaking war, man. I mean, 320 5.56 rounds? Are you kidding me? This man has 10 full magazines of assault rifle ammo. Not just assault rifle ammo. 5.56 ammo, which is kind of a lot. It's kind of a lot. And, I mean, he even said that he would quote, talking, and this is in reference to Mayor Muriel E. Bowser of Washington, quote, "I may wander over to the mayor's office and put a 5.56 in her skull," end quote. And that was what he said in a text message. So obviously this also really bothers me, because this shows that they're ready to fight. This group was completely expecting full retaliation, and they actually were ready to go to war. And that's what really concerns me about this entire article. And obviously there were a lot of other things that concerned me, the fact that there's an investigation into the United States Congress, the fact that police officers have gotten arrested, but the fact that this man showed up with 2,500 rounds of ammo, an assault rifle, and a 9mm pistol is ridiculous to me. I mean, there's not really much else to say other than these guys are obviously ready for a war. They're ready to actually go to war against the United States, which, by the way, this is kind of off topic, but these guys claim to be patriots? How the hell are you a patriot if you just assaulted the government? Like, am I going? Maybe I'm going crazy, but that does not make you a patriot in any way, shape, or form. And there's a couple more things I want to say. There were two congressmen from Arizona, Paul Gosar and Andy Biggs, both Republicans. They helped plan the rally that preceded the riot. Obviously, they came out and said that they deny they had any role in organizing the rally, but they have been attributed to this partially anyway, which again bothers me, because now there are people from everywhere in the government that are part of this. You have Donald Trump, you have potentially people in the U.S. Congress, you have police officers, firefighters, and state senators or state congressmen. It really bothers me that has happened. I mean, this is a democracy, and I know I've said this quite a few times. We live in a democracy, which means if you lose the vote, you lost the vote. Sucks to be you. Oh well, you have the minority opinion. That's how a democracy works. The majority rules. So the fact that you just can't accept that and instead decide to invade the Capitol building like this is ridiculous to me. And at the end of the day, this is the last thing I'm going to say. At the end of the day, right, this is looking like it's going to be a huge, huge deal. I mean, I am so glad I'm not in the US anymore right now, because if I were, I would be legitimately scared that I would get shot. Because I am actually concerned that there's going to be an extremist attack on the government. I think that, these neo Nazis actually do have cells across the country, and I think that those cells are going to explode very soon, maybe even on the inauguration day. And that's going to be it for this one. Again, if you liked it, like it. If you didn't dislike it, it's up to you. Do what you got to do. And I'll see you guys later.